Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 86 of Small Business War Stories. And today's a little bit of a different episode. I sat down with Jake Hurwitz, and we talked about his failures, about how he turned his failures into a new beginning. And Jake is a very enterprising. He's very young, and I met him when I used to be a guest lecturer at the University of Colorado. I met him when he was a student, and he is very young, but very, very smart and very enterprising. And while he was in school at the University of Colorado, he started something called Eyesight Collective. So like an I-E-Y-E, Sight Collective. And it was a student-led creative agency that basically worked with local companies, getting students experience and getting the company's great work from the students. And he'll tell a story about how things kind of, initially worked out and then went sideways. And now he's at a different company. He's at a company called Boulder in Boulder. And he's learned a lot from all of the things that he's gone through. And it's a really cool episode because a lot of times we learn more from the times when things don't go well than when they do go well. So we dive into a lot of that in this episode. This episode is the last episode of the Soul of America 2 tour. And it was in Boulder, Colorado. And it is brought to you by FreshBooks. FreshBooks is a small business accounting and bookkeeping software. So basically, if you are running your business, you are going to need to be able to keep track of all your finances. And it's boring. Nobody wants to do it, but it's necessary. And you should do it with a piece of software that allows you to keep things straight, such as FreshBooks. Go check out freshbooks.com/warstories and tell them you found them on Small Business War Stories. And this episode, like every episode, is brought to you by Proven. Proven.com is a company that I started, and it is a small business hiring tool. So if you're a small business and you're looking to hire, do go check it out. It's very inexpensive, and it's a great value. We have thousands of customers, and it'll help you organize and be much more successful with your hiring as a small business. Again, proven.com, and you can go to blog.proven.com. We have lots of resources there for you. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Jake Hurwitz in Boulder, Colorado. And we are live here in Boulder, Colorado. And today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jake Hurwitz. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
And you and I met, I want to say, 3 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah,
maybe even 4.
Maybe even 4 years ago. So I was visiting here as a visiting, I guess, lecturer or whatever.
Yeah, guest speaker.
In a class. And what do you remember about that class?
It was my honors program at the Leeds School of Business, Leeds Scholars. And you were a mentor for one of our other students, is that right, Yana?
Yeah.
So she brought you in, as a lot of students did. They kind of brought in their closest mentors here and there to give a guest presentation.
Yeah.
You talked about failure, how hard it was to basically look your team in the eye, knowing that they could lose their jobs tomorrow, and it's technically your fault.
Yep.
How to get through that, and that was...
Well, it's 100% your fault.
Yeah, that was inspiring, and this was right around the time when I was thinking about starting a venture. Really hadn't thought about the failures that would come along with it, but rather just visualizing all the success that would come out of it, because that's naturally what you do when you're,
of course,
19 years old thinking about starting a company.
Yeah.
I think it was what I needed. It was like a pre-kick in the teeth.
Okay.
And coming out of that session, I think I shook your hand after.
Thank you.
Of course. And it was definitely, it set the stage for what was about to go down. And it was inspiring nonetheless. Yeah. And I think the coolest part was that you showed up with a new hip hop vinyl in your hand. You're like, yeah, I just grabbed this from the record store on the hill, which not a lot of guest speakers do. And I was like, all right, cool. This guy's into music. I'm into music.
Yeah.
We're going to get along.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So that happened right before, and so how old are you now?
I'm 22.
You're 22. So this was when you were first starting or thinking about starting what was Eyesight Collective, right?
Yep, that's right.
And today we'll talk a little bit about the successes that you had in getting that started, and then some of the challenges and difficulties. You are no longer running Eyesight Collective, right?
Correct.
You are still involved in as a board member, is that right?
Yeah, an advisor.
Okay, and then that is something that a lot of people don't. It's something that you and I were talking about right before the show. It's an unspoken thing in the world of entrepreneurship. A lot of times, like, what happens when you no longer run the company that you started, and the difficulties of that. It's way more common than you would think. I personally know at least a half dozen people who this has happened to. So it's a very common thing. But at the same time, it's something that people have trouble speaking of openly,
right?
Because it doesn't feel good always. But I think it's really important. And to me, it's been cathartic. I mean, I had my original co-founder on the show who was no longer with the company, what it was like to break up with me as a co-founder. I think I've always found it cathartic, and I want to commend you and thank you for stepping up to the plate and sharing your story.
Sure.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
So what is Eyesight Collective?
Yeah, so it has taken many forms.
Okay.
I basically started the company as a student-led creative agency.
Okay.
The idea was in Boulder, Colorado. As a freelance designer for my first year of college, I found that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of startups that needed websites, videos, photos taken, logos designed, but they didn't have the budget to hire an agency, so they either did it themselves and the quality of the work sucked, or they found a college student who couldn't get it done for them in a reasonable amount of time. So I started this creative agency called Eyesight. The idea was to get the most talented students around campus to handle the creative work. I would handle the account management, so I'd basically go out and get the clients, local startups, university programs, whoever really needed help but on a low budget, and then we would affordably give them really high quality work. The idea at the same time then was to also train these students with soft skills so that as they progressed in their creative career, they would learn how to do things like write good emails, build a strong resume, put together a nice portfolio, actually like how to get clients, how to bill clients, how to talk to adults, something that college wasn't really teaching them. So the company started really as just the agency. It then shifted into sort of half agency, half training accelerator program. And then when we found that side was really working, kids that we were bringing in were basically landing their dream jobs in a matter of months, like 2 months, learning really how to market themselves. We then shifted to completely focus on the professional development side. So we made online courses, we hosted webinars, we hosted events, pretty much tried every single thing we could to teach 20, 22-year-olds how to get their shit together professionally.
Which is interesting because technically that's what we go to college for, right? Is to quote unquote get your shit together.
That's what we think.
The world. My experience certainly at UCLA wasn't like that. Right. I found a career center that was overwhelmed and didn't really give a shit. I don't know what your experience was with that, and like how did you? It's really interesting. You were basically building a program that filled this gap that you perceived in college education, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were thousands of kids that would spend their Friday, Saturday nights in their dorm room building apps and designing websites and just making videos for fun. And the furthest it would go into the outside world is just on their Instagram.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Because, okay, they can monetize that. They can build a portfolio. They can use that to get a job. They can help the world with it.
Yeah.
They could really do anything. But the support that they had in college, the career advisors, their professors, whomever, it was all templatized. It was this templatized system of our students have to make their resumes look like this. Yep. And you apply for a job like this. But the truth is, like, none of that is true. Yeah. And frankly, they were getting advice from people who haven't actually done it. It's, the old saying.
Well, so I am no longer a guest speaker at the lead school. And I think a lot of it had to do with the honesty that I brought to, I basically told people, like, if you look around the hallways here and see all the big corporations with their names and then count the number of your classmates who go there, it's not a coincidence.
Right.
There's like the well-greased skids of like these corporations funding things so that they can get another crop of kids because they already burned through the last crop of kids that came 2 years ago.
Right. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it's almost a good segue because the hardest part was realizing that my mission with my company was out to change the status quo. Yeah. It was a David and Goliath story. I was basically going up against college. Yeah. That's a pretty big system. And I'm 22 and I have no track record. All I had was a couple of mentors and advisors, some of which have pedigree that could back us. But at the end of the day, it's like we were basically out to change the face of, young adults as we know it.
Yeah.
That's big. Counterculture is always going to exist. 20-year-olds are always going to be idiots. And we could either accept that or we could try to change it. I didn't accept it for a while.
Yeah.
And that was enough fuel for years to get me to really put out everything I put out.
Yeah.
To pivot in the ways that we did.
So it started as a creative agency.
Yep.
It grew into more education coursework focused on kind of bridging that gap between college and the real world.
Totally.
What happened then?
So at that point, it was all mentor driven. So, we didn't have exams or quizzes or really anything like that. It was just bring in people that are super successful, inspiring, want to just give back and quote unquote send the elevator back down. And through those endeavors, students would kind of find naturally who they resonate with. And then we would connect them with people in the community to actually go out for coffee and teach them, all right, you got to follow up with them and send them an article when you think of them, or just write a thank you card over Christmas. And those relationships formed, and it totally changed these kids' lives. Yeah. They were getting dream jobs. They were crushing it. They were making money. They were starting their own companies. So that's when we then shifted really full focus from all right, I'm not as fueled by working with clients anymore as much as I am working with students.
Okay.
So we shifted the company.
And just so that our listeners and our audience can feel that were you in a building? What was this structure?
I'll never forget this. So I was sitting at my girlfriend's table in her kitchen in Vail with my two best friends at the time, Aiden and Marco, who are all still best friends. But I was sitting there with two of my best friends, and we were definitely pretty drunk, had a lot of wine to drink, and my girlfriend and her friends were out at the pool outside, and we were just talking. Yeah. We're all in the startup scene, and we challenge each other a lot on personal growth and, why do we do what we do? And I just had this, and I've never had an epiphany or an aha moment, but this was the closest thing I had to that, where it just kind of hit me what the hell am I doing waking up every day, building websites for people that I don't really like, selling products that I don't give a shit about, like phone cases and solar-powered chargers and just stupid shit that's not going to make the world a better place. What the hell am I doing getting out of bed every day doing that when I have the brain and the ability and all the resources to actually change the world? Yeah. Where I would never get out of bed for a phone call with a client before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m., but I would be psyched to get out of bed at 3 a.m. to take a call from a kid on my team who needs some help with his resume or has an interview coming up and just needs some help. I was so fueled by that. Yeah. And it was that feeling, kind of thinking it's Saturday afternoon. Yeah. I can't go back to work Monday morning and even look my clients in the eye and say I'm going to keep doing work for you because I just wasn't fueled by it.
I hear you. I mean, it's when you harness that, it's powerful. I mean, I drove 17 hours over the weekend to come up here, and then last night I was up until 10 p.m. Doing scheduling and stuff, and it doesn't feel like work when you're.
It's not. Yeah, it's absolutely not. It's just your life. Yeah, that's all it is. And I think it's really important to take the time to look up, and pick your head up and literally look at what is your life as a whole. What are you really fueled by? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Sure. And when you're not really feeling it at the time, you just got to stop. Yeah. You have to, because you're hurting yourself a lot. You're hurting the people around you. You're not reaching your full potential. Life is way too short to not go down the route of the path that you feel like you have to take. Yeah. So this was the summer before my senior year of college. I was kind of just stepping into my last stretch, thinking about what do I want to do next. And in my mind, there was absolutely no other path I could possibly take aside from build this company into a $100 million company. Okay. And Eyesight Collective. Yep. So the idea was, we wanted to create really interactive online courses for students and recent grads that were taught by super successful people that they actually looked up to. The courses would get them out into the real world, and part of completing the course meant you have to go through these worksheets. And part of those worksheets, these workbooks, were to go out and have coffee with strangers and ask them for advice and ask them questions. I'm like, all right, well,
that was part of what I told people to do during my lecture.
And it's huge. And frankly, you learn way more doing that than anything else you could possibly do. And there were literally things in the workbooks that would say all right, when you're done with the meeting, ask them, how should I follow up? Yeah. Here's a template to follow up.
Yeah. That's literally what I would tell people when they said, when I would do talks at the lead school and people were like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. And I was like, okay, well, tell me 3 things you're interested in, or even one thing you're interested in. I don't care what it is. I love hiking, the outdoors, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, what do you think are the odds that in the last 20 years, there are 5 people that have graduated from the University of Colorado who live nearby who are working in something related to the outdoors. And then their eyes would go like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm like, okay, anybody will talk to you because you're a student. So go to that alumni database, contact those people, and maybe you'll have to contact 20 to talk to 5, but they'll talk to you.
Of course. They'd be more than happy to.
Yeah.
So yeah, this curriculum was all about getting kids out into the world and figuring out who they are, what they're curious about, what they're passionate about. You're not going to figure that out sitting in a classroom. You're not going to figure it out at a frat party. You're not going to figure it out literally by sitting in your hammock and just thinking. You're going to figure it out by talking to someone who's going to challenge you, who's going to push you and kick your ass to get smarter and work harder.
Yeah, and by doing things.
Yeah. And it's the strength that you build in doing the tough things, stepping out of your comfort zone, like shaking that person's hand that you're a little bit intimidated by, not really sure if you should send that email. And in those acts, that's where you learn all the things about yourself that push you forward, bottom line. So we built this curriculum, and for months, we basically realized, all right, well, we've got access to professional equipment, video, audio equipment through campus, through our program. When we graduate, we don't have access to that anymore. So, okay, we've got 6 months left. Let's go film as much as we can using this equipment.
Let's go all out.
Basically, yeah. So we went and filmed about 20 videos, maybe even more, with people all around the community of all really shapes and sizes in the startup business world, which is basically, we had VCs on there, we had CEOs, we had, people, ex-vice presidents at Pepsi Cola, people of very well-respected backgrounds. And we got them to open up and share their stories and then share advice. So it was kind of like taking those coffee meetings, bringing it to your computer screen, thinking kids don't really go out and have coffee, but if we can make it awesome with hip hop music and dope branding and a really great infrastructure and some awesome social media marketing behind it, they'll kind of see the appeal to learning from people that they're inspired by without the fear of going out and having that coffee meeting. So we'll bring it to them. And we weren't satisfied with just 4 kids a semester or 100 kids in a webinar. We wanted every single 20-year-old through 28-year-old we could find in the world and deliver this content to them.
Cool.
Didn't work. It did not work.
All right, tell me more about
that. I built up this, vision in my head of the ideal scenario on launch day.
Yeah.
And I remember the first thing that we launched was a few days before Halloween, during my senior year of college. We made this video series called Eyesight Season 1. It had 8 videos that were about 5 to 10 minutes long, really moving and emotional. They were just these people talking to the camera, multiple camera angles, just beautiful cinematography, great learning lessons, topics like overcoming failure or having a lot of humility or seeking feedback. And, they were important to business, but they were important to life. And so I spent 15, 20 hours a day with my co-founder in our co-working space and coffee shops in our bedrooms, just editing this footage, filming it, building, some social media hype around it. And I built up this vision in my head of launch day. It was going to be, I'm going to throw this awesome launch party, and at midnight, I'm going to press launch, and I'm going to wake up the next morning, and there's going to be emails in my inbox looking to interview us and companies sharing it around on their pages, and it's going to go viral. And none of that happened.
Yeah. Well, that was, the famous Mike Tyson saying everybody's got a plan until they get punched.
Exactly. And frankly, I thought launch day was going to be the greatest day of my life. And that thought caused it to become the worst day of my life.
Yeah, expectations.
The expectation was learning from having that expectation that I can't have those expectations. That was a tough kick in the teeth. And look, I'm a senior in college. I want to be famous. I want to make viral content. And none of it happened. It was just kind of hard, and I had no one to talk to about it. My co-founder, I think he felt the same thing in his own world, his own way. And I just kind of spent that day feeling this weird sense of depression, this weird sense of like, why didn't this work? Why aren't I good enough? What could I have done differently? So I got on the phone with my dad. We're super close. And he said to me, Jake, you feel like you should be in the 9th inning, but you're in the 2nd inning. You just pressed go. Like you just started.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say. I would say you're like you just showed up at the stadium. You're still wearing your street clothes.
Right, and he was like, you know what? You put in the work in the time beforehand, but there's no such thing as an overnight success. I know you want to be, but every overnight success took years to get there.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast has grown like much slower than I was like. I was thinking the same thing. Like just interview great people, get good people going. And it's growing, but it's slow and it's a grind and it takes a lot of effort. It's not like if you build it, it will come.
Right, and so the most important thing he said to me, which is something I'll never forget on the phone, he said, Jake has to be good enough for Jake. It's not about the interviews that you get out of this. It's not about the virality of the video or anything like that. It's just about, are you satisfied with the work that you put in? Are you proud of what you built?
Yeah.
You can't sleep because you're so excited about the content and the quality of it and the fact that you're getting to use these cameras and this audio equipment that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Like, I was psyched about what we built. I'm really, really proud of it. Jake's got to be good enough for Jake. And so that really resonated with me. And this was I went and then poured a glass of whiskey and kind of tried to like celebrate through the pain of what
powerful.
Didn't work out. And it was very powerful. And that was enough for me to wake up the next morning and get back to work.
Okay.
And so we took what we had built and we validated it, and we put it in front of people and we're like, what do you think of this? How do you feel when you watch this?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you expect to see this? What would you say about this if you were to describe it to a friend? Why aren't you interested in watching this? So we learned basically why we were stuck at 40 views on a video and not 40,000.
Why was that?
It was the fact that college students don't give a shit about overcoming failure. They don't give a shit about learning how to have a lot of humility.
I mean, I wouldn't say it. There's some.
There's a few, and frankly, it's not something that is sexy to them. You know, hey, do you want to spend your time learning how to network and how to seek feedback from others? Like, no, I want to spend my time drinking beer. I'm like, okay, great. I can't argue with that. That's just the way it is. So we started asking different questions. We started asking, do you want to start a company? And they're like, yeah. I would do anything I can to start my own company. We're like, okay. Do you want to land a job in the music industry? They're like, yeah, I would do whatever I need to do to land my dream job in the music industry. And we're like, okay, so this is a marketing problem that we were facing.
Right.
This isn't how to overcome failure. This is how to land your dream job in the music industry. That includes overcoming failure, building a portfolio, X, Y, Z.
It's just the light you shine on.
It's just the way we packaged it. And so that was enough for us to then go back to the drawing board and think, all right, well, it requires us to go film a lot more content and packages differently and basically launch these online courses on how to land a job in the music industry and how to start your own company. We thought, all the data, all the hundreds of hours of validation, like tons of conversations, tons of people that we talked to, hundreds, they were all telling us that if we packaged it by industry, basically, if you want to start a company, let's go out and get 10 CEOs to talk about how they started a company. And through that will be really interactive content. It's not just videos, because when you're done with the video, you press X and move on. It's a course. And so we built it. We built our first online course called Startup Vault. It's 10 chapters, about 2.5 hours of video content, had all these workbooks, right? And then it all started again. So launch day came up.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, what did I learn last time around from launch day? Don't build up these expectations. Maybe do a way better job with a pre-launch strategy. So like 2 months in advance, let's start planning out what this is going to look like. So we did that. We built sales funnels and automatic email replies and all the stuff that, you get told to do on your Facebook ads and whatnot. So we built all that and it launched, and I just kind of said, like, all right, like, this is the beginning. This isn't the end. So we launched it and nothing happened. And the goal was to hit 100 paying customers in the first month.
Okay. We
got 7.
Okay.
So the first month finished up. We had 7 paying customers. 4 of them were discounted customers. So the goal was to make $10,000 in the first month. I made about $400.
Okay.
That sucked. But it was okay at the same time, because now it gave me a chance to go to my mentors and my advisors and say, all right, well, like, this happened. Shit happens. Where do we go from here? What do we do next? And they basically said, well, like, how much cash do you have? I said, I've got about 3 months of runway. They said, okay, that's not so bad. What does that mean? Like, what does that cover? I said, well, it means 3 months until I can no longer survive. Like, can't pay my rent and can't eat, and that's about it. They're like, all right, well, that's enough time to get it off the ground. So go do this, go do that. Don't worry about revenue so much right now. Worry about customers. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'll just go get a ton of customers, get them on the platform as much as I can. It made sense where, for an education product, people don't trust it based on a Facebook ad. They, especially something they're going to pay $200 for, they want to know that it helped their friend get their dream job. And we didn't have any quote unquote friends that could share this with people. We needed to just get some testimonials. So that was about 2 weeks into the summer after I graduated from college. And in that month, right after, me and my girlfriend broke up. Mm-hmm. My co-founder had to leave the company. and all my friends moved to other cities. And that was the hardest time of my life.
It's a lonely time.
And it was very lonely. And I think the hardest part was all I had during that was my work. And I couldn't even focus on it. I would get up every morning at 8 and kind of lay in bed till 9 thinking, I really don't want to do this today because like my girl's not here, my homies aren't here, my co-founder's not here to get me out of bed. And I would drag myself to the co-working space. I'd stare at the computer screen for 3 hours trying to like give myself stuff to do. I would write cold emails. I'd try to just play music that I liked, and my flow was gone. Mm-hmm. Nothing worked. And it then caused a feedback loop of like I was bummed that I was bummed. And that made it worse. That made me even more bummed.
Yeah.
And that lasted about...
There's a great book called The Art of Not Giving a Fuck by
Just
Mark
read it.
Manson. Yeah.
I think
and it talks about
could
that,
be the
right?
best book I've ever read.
Yeah.
And it was perfect timing for me to read that book. It totally got me through a lot. But frankly, that stage lasted about 12 weeks. It was almost 3 months of my life it was the rest of my runway. So I kind of just had to do what I could to keep moving forward by myself. And frankly, there were a lot of stages with it. It went from first identifying what I was feeling to just feeling it, to figuring out, all right, well, like, how do I get myself out of here?
Yeah.
Trying a bunch of things for a couple of weeks, to, going camping with new people, or trying new sports, or going to yoga by myself, or just all kinds of stuff to get myself out of that. And then finally it started to kind of kick back in. These new things were working. I took some time off, went back to New York with some family for a little while, and they kind of reminded me that everything I built was, first of all, amazing. The quality of it was amazing, that it had blown everyone's minds. Not even the fact of like what I built, but the fact that I just did it. Mm-hmm. And that helped to hear.
Yeah.
When you're stuck in Boulder and you're stuck in the startup scene, and you're always measuring yourself up against like who raised this amount of money and the successes and the exits and all that stuff. It's really easy to get bogged down by sort of these vanity metrics of like it has to be succeeding, but the truth is it's rarely going to happen. So coming back to reality as far as what I had done made me remember that Jake's got to be good enough for Jake. And that feeling really helped. And so that was the beginning. This was only about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This was me then realizing that this whole 2.5 year journey of building a company, and it was all I had, it was my identity.
Yeah.
That was a chapter. And now it's time for the next chapter. And that was no more than a means to the next chapter.
Okay.
And had I not done that, I would there's no way I would get to the next chapter.
Sure. And
so now I'm in the next chapter and I'm loving it.
Okay.
Freaking psyched.
Okay.
I've got my flow back. I'm cranking. I'm happy. I'm going out all the time.
Good.
I'm going on dates. I'm doing a lot.
So what happened with Eyesight Collective then?
So Eyesight Collective still exists. I basically abandoned the online course model.
Okay.
And reverted back to the creative agency
where
it all started. And what I learned there was that this need is always going to exist. This need is that there are lots of small businesses and there are lots of college students that should be matched up. Students that have enormous talent and businesses that have a pretty small budget, and they can make it happen. So I have now a CEO and a CCO of the company that are at school at CU, Ian and Patrick, badasses. Okay. And so I'm training them basically to be running the day-to-day, and I stepped up to an advisory role. So the idea would be the company will always live on at CU.
Why not you continue to run that?
It's not my thing anymore.
It's just not your thing anymore.
It's time for the next chapter for me.
Okay.
I'm no longer a student, and this is a student-led agency. That's kind of like the literal side of it.
So you want to keep, the people who are running it now would then the idea pass the baton to people down the line.
Absolutely.
So it would always be student run.
Always be student run. The idea is I want it to be my legacy that I left behind at my university.
That's awesome.
So Eyesight will be kind of like a club or a fraternity or a sorority.
That's awesome.
The idea is every 2-3 years, the management hands over, the training program gets better and better. As an advisor, I'm always available to obviously train those people, help them with emails and finding clients and make intros and just kind of help them navigate the Boulder startup scene the way I did and make less mistakes and basically have a path to figure it out in their own way.
That's all. Is it a not-for-profit then?
No, it is a for-profit company.
Oh. Have you thought about doing that?
I've thought about it a little bit. I find though that the act of actually like making money and managing money and dealing with taxes and paying students and paying yourself is a huge learning experience, learning how to budget all that, especially. Sure. And so I do want my team in the future.
Yeah.
As much as, it is a business for them and for me to make money and for the organization to make money, this is a way to accelerate your own professional development.
Okay.
Which is my biggest obsession.
Yeah.
It's being a young badass who knows how to handle the professional world.
Yeah.
And so,
well, for what it's worth, you are miles ahead of where I was when I was 22. I told the story when I was doing my talks, but I was trying to make it in the finance world. I had no idea what was what. So for what it's worth, you're killing it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
So tell me more about you finding your flow again. So you're really excited about now being in that state of flow.
Yeah. So this is something I actually learned recently, having journaled about it the past couple of weeks. I learned that I'm the type of person that can very easily access my flow state.
Okay.
With my work, with my workouts, with my social life. So if I sit down at the computer, I know I've got a to-do list for today. I put on my headphones, listen to some house music.
Yeah.
And I just go.
Yeah.
And I follow my schedule and I get my shit done and I'm just in the zone. And I think that's what's allowed me to.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. I mean,
I have trouble doing that sometimes.
Yeah. And, amongst obviously like all the hustle and the networking and all that stuff, but actually like being able to produce work fast and of quality and just like really in the zone, not even realizing my phone's buzzing or there are other things in the world. And there's a lot of distractions in Boulder. Yeah. Being able to completely be siloed from those distractions really helped. So I was able to do that for a long time. Mountain biking, snowboarding. I just hop on my bike or my snowboard and I'm just in the zone and there's no better feeling to me. There's nothing else in the world that matters. I'm literally flowing down the trail. Like I feel like I'm one with the world around me and it's this endorphin, adrenaline rush. It's just the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
My social life, I'm out with my friends. We're laughing. I'm just in the zone there. I'm very present with all these activities. And this summer that all went away. I was mountain biking almost every day and none of it felt good. I mean, I was still getting the workout, but the mental wasn't there. My social life, I wasn't smiling because my girlfriend wasn't around and I wanted her there and something felt lost. And then I started to do yoga.
Yeah.
And my flow came back because yoga is flow.
I do yoga as well.
Totally. And, it's, I known I should started for a while.
Yeah.
I had known that I should start yoga for a while and I never really did it because I was always just kind of too obsessed with my own workouts. But I went with my friend and he got me to try it. And suddenly I felt this connection with my body and my head that I hadn't felt in about 3 months. And I then started to take the practice with me in my daily life. This was about a month ago when I really started. And that brought my flow back in my work, in my mountain biking.
Have you tried Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I have not.
You should check it out. I
definitely
urge you to check out. So Will, who is works with me at Proven and was a classmate of yours at CU, he started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu recently. Cool. I've been doing it for about 6 years. For me, it was a very transformative, amazing thing.
Awesome.
It's a little bit more involved than yoga in the sense that you are, fighting somebody. But it's like human chess. There's a lot of, check it out. I invite you to at least give it a try. There's some really good places.
I will absolutely give it a try.
Easton's here in Boulder.
Okay, great. Good. I actually have heard of them.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out. So yeah, the flow state, having had it and lost it, recognizing that I lost it and then got it back.
Yeah.
It's so much stronger now. It's so much more powerful.
The amazing thing is that if you recognize the things that you can do to activate that, you find yourself not punishing yourself for being down because you're like, oh, I'm down. Okay. I know what I need to do. I can, whatever it is for you, paint, go for a run, do yoga, do jiu-jitsu, go swimming, whatever it is, like find that thing that puts you back there again. And that makes it feel like, I guess, not hopeless, right? So.
Absolutely. I think a big thing that happened to describe the scene again, when I went back to New York, right around the beginning of August, I was couch surfing in Manhattan with some buddies from high school, kids from college that had moved out there. And so one of my buddies has a sweet apartment right around Midtown. And we were hanging out on his roof. The sun was going down. It was after a long day that I was working in Soho. And, the Empire State Building's right there. Chrysler Building is right there above my face. And I'm looking at these buildings. I'm literally picking my head up. And the metaphoric version of pick your head up means like, all right, like, what am I good at?
Yeah.
What do I love to do? What would I do as a career if money didn't even exist? What would I do? And it kind of reminded me, because I haven't asked myself those questions since I started Eyesight in the first place.
Yeah.
So I kind of went down the rabbit hole for 2.5 years of building this thing, and every pivot I made, every change we had to make to follow the markets and the financial opportunity to become profitable, it was just taking me one step further from my original mission. Next thing I know, I'm like working 15 hours a day building online courses for interns for companies that I didn't care about. Like, I've never taken an online course. I've never even been an intern. What the hell was I doing?
Right.
And so having that realization of like, whoa, dude, you got to stop. You got to try something new. All right, fine. Let's try something new. What the hell am I good at? What do I love? What are like my top 3 biggest obsessions? Because frankly, passion isn't enough. And knowing what those are and thinking about it and thinking like, all right, how does that translate to the next chapter? That was a very transformative moment of close the book, take what you're into, take what you love, take what you're good at, and let's go get started again.
That's awesome.
And it's very liberating when you can actually put it into use. And it's not just like a job. This is my life, and it's a combination of everything in my life.
One of the important concepts too that Mark Manson talks about in that book is like, you don't get to not struggle.
Right.
If you are life is struggle. And a fortunate life is a life where you get to choose what you struggle at. But there's no such a thing as not. And the moment you embrace the suck and kind of realize, okay, that's, part of the game, there's a freedom that comes with that. And then you just, it applies to a lot of things in life, but that's what I found.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what project are you working on now? You're here at a place called Boulder Bits?
Yeah, so I'm the new VP of branding at Boulder Bits. Okay. Boulder Bits is a startup studio. So basically what we do is we come up with startup ideas, like hundreds a year, and we vet them like crazy to think, all right, what could possibly work? We put them through this intense vetting process, trying to kill things as fast as possible, as quickly as possible. And the ideas and the concepts that remain, we then run with. We build teams around, we hire the right people, we provide them with funding, whatever they really need, office space, any resource you could name that they need to thrive, we provide them with that.
Cool.
And we own these companies. And so as VP of branding, I basically build the identities and the early stage content, social media, the websites, the videos, whatever we need to get these companies off the ground. But it's research driven. It's not just like, what do I want to make this calendar app look like? It's a matter of actually building brands that stick and empower and tell good stories. And so my favorite thing in the world is to build identity, build brands. I mean, that's like my number one favorite thing from scratch. And so I'm doing that all day.
I could probably use your help.
Yeah, I'd love to help. And so, we're building these companies. It's kind of like my own little clients, but we own them.
Awesome.
So I can't stop thinking about really all day, how could I tell this story differently or better? There's a lot of things going on in the startup world right now where frankly, it's all the same bullshit. And so I'm pushing myself really hard to think outside of the box as far as like, how do we sell products? How do we empower people? How do we tell stories?
What's an example recently of when you've done that? Like an example of where, you're thinking about like a different way of telling a story.
Yeah. So I'll give the example for Boulder Bits itself. Boulder Bits is our parent company that I work for.
Yeah.
And we don't really have much of a brand at all. It's kind of just like this building. We have no zest. There's no voice behind what we do, but we all stand for something. We believe in hustle. Heads down. We believe in intelligent. God, my phone's vibrating. Start the story over real quick.
That's okay.
So Boulder Bits is the parent company that I work for. And right now we don't really have much of a brand identity at all. There's no zest. There's no vibe to what it is that we have. We have an office building. We have a website. But when we ask people, what do you think of when you think of Boulder Bits, they don't really know. So that's awesome. We have a blank canvas of what we want to turn it into. So there's a lot of accelerators out there. There's a lot of studios out there, and they're all kind of telling the same story, which is like a video with a cheesy ukulele song in the background, talking about how we do this, we do that, we help our founders with this, we help our founders with that. But like, frankly, no one gives a shit what you do.
Yeah.
They care about why you do it and how it's going to help my life. And so I'm taking the approach to tell a lot of stories of our humans, our teams, and our products, and not just like saying, all right, well, here's a screen flow of our new app. It's more like, this is somebody, this is Cynthia. Cynthia is out at a coffee shop. She had a pretty shitty day. Here's why. Here's her using the app, and this is how it's helping her. And those are relatable stories.
Okay.
They empower people to be like Cynthia. They empower people to, want to learn more about Cynthia. And that's not selling a product, that's selling a lifestyle.
Okay.
My favorite example is Yeti coolers.
Yeah.
These guys are geniuses. They make a 7.5-minute video that catches people's attention the entire time. They don't have to put it on TV or anything. They put it on YouTube for free. and people are tuned in for 7.5 minutes. The only branding you see for Yeti in the entire video is maybe somebody wearing a Yeti hat, but it's just a story about two brothers that are fly fishermen.
Yeah, I live in Austin, so I know all about Yeti.
Yeah, and so
have you read the book? There's a book by I just went to the HubSpot Inbound Conference. I forget the name of it, but Dave Blumenthal. No, I'm gonna have to cut this part out. But there's a great book where they talk about how Yeti has done this.
I'm reading a new one now. My dad's friend. It's called Friction.
That's the one.
Okay, cool.
That's the one.
Jeff Rosenblum. I've got it in my bedroom right now.
I just saw a talk by him.
Very cool.
So that he gave that same example in Patagonia. I know.
Yep. Yeah. So that's how the book opens. My dad and Jeff are friends. I reached out to Jeff and haven't heard back yet. So
cool.
If Jeff, if you're listening to this, respond to my email, please.
Please respond.
Yep. It's a great book, and it's definitely, even the design of the book is different. And frankly, the biggest takeaway I've gotten from it so far is brands that win are the brands that empower. Mm-hmm. They do that through education and inspiration.
Yeah.
And I'll finish up watching an ad by Yeti, and I'll literally want to go hop in a kayak and kayak down the Colorado River. I'm about to do it.
Did you see the video they did about the Texas water safari?
I think so.
I'm considering doing that now because of that.
And what's going to happen the next time you go to the store to buy a new hat? There's going to be 4 on the shelf: North Face, Patagonia, Mountain, whatever, and Yeti. You're going to buy the Yeti one. And that's powerful. That's really powerful.
Cool.
And so that's the approach I'm trying to take to tech and startups, which is typically not very sexy. They're all telling the same stories. They're all using the same colors. All their websites look the same. Yeah. I'm trying to bring some feeling to it, some emotion, some moodiness. Some of the best outdoor brands right now, like Patagonia, of course, Yeti, they're using very moody, inspiring aesthetics to sell products and to build movement and to empower. And I want to bring that to tech.
Yeah.
Because tech has the power to do that, and the products that we're building here at Boulder Bits are actually they are pushing life in the right direction. They are solving big pain points for people. It's not just little productivity apps or random little SaaS tools that don't really solve any problems. We are actually doing things, but the tough part is people who build these apps usually aren't strong at storytelling. That's the approach I'm trying to take. I know that was a long-winded
no, that's
way of
great.
describing it.
That's great. Well, I think what you're doing is amazing. How can people find you? What's your Twitter handle and what are the
I think so. I'm not that active on Twitter. Okay. LinkedIn's my spot right now. LinkedIn is it's a wild west right now of new types of content coming out, and I'm really intrigued by it.
Okay.
So find me on LinkedIn, Jake Hurwitz. Follow me there. I like to post stuff often. And I'm actually creating a lot of content right now to start putting out on a blog pretty soon. It's going to be a lot of video content,
awesome.
A lot of blog content.
We'll put those links in the show notes.
That'd be awesome. So all that stuff is really out to get people to think differently about their personal brand and their company's brand. I'm a branding guy. All I think about all the time.
I'll hit you up. I need your help. So.
Totally.
All right, Jake. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and telling your story.
My pleasure.
All right,
this was awesome.
All right, good times. Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.